Ooh.
I've got something come up here. Oh, this meeting's being recorded. Well, that's okay.
We can cut that bit out.
Yeah, it came right across it came across my screen. So
right, so Rod, hi, welcome.
Hi, Clem. Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Yeah,
so,
good to be here.
It's been a random sequence of events that's brought us together now, but we're here and we're having a conversation today about your wealth of knowledge and experience and studying the evidence around heaven and people's experiences of the afterlife, and your work particularly with the bereaved and those that maybe have lost a loved one or are facing death. Your how you support them with this information. So I was just going to give a little bit of a picture of how I've come to be fascinated with this subject, and then I'm going to hopefully talk a lot less and let you talk a lot more, because it's your sort of wealth of knowledge that we want to get out into the world.
No, so, I'd like to hear about you, because I don't know about this bit.
Yeah,
so
well,
it's new to me.
I was thinking about it this morning, and I probably haven't told the biggest. I was thinking really where this started was my nana died. We were very close to our nana. She was with us all the time, and she died, and I was at a birth within a month. And when she died, I felt really strange. Like I felt so strongly that she'd gone somewhere better. I had no real faith. I had no real questions. I wasn't really questioning anything at that time. But I felt so strongly that she'd gone somewhere better. I almost wanted to dance at her funeral, and I was thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm meant to be like grieving and upset, and I was wanting to celebrate. And that sort of started me questioning. And then she came to me in a dream very clearly. I have dreams that some are dreams and some feel more than dreams. And she came to me in a dream, and she told me everything is right here if I just open my eyes. And we hugged, and there was this amazing scenery, and she told me to say goodbye to my granddad for her, and everything changed for me from that point on. So, and the same when I was at my friend's birth later on. So I've been spent a lot of time helping people through, in labor, and got involved in that, the birth transition. But I feel more and more drawn into asking the deeper questions about the transition out of this life now. And I had a dream recently that has ended up with me calling you and connecting with you completely out the blue, and saying this, you remember Michael French 10 years ago? Well, I've had a dream and I'm calling you, and this is random. And amazingly, you just said there's no coincidences. So we're following on that, and we've had amazing conversations. And I just felt like these conversations I'd love to have, so other people can join in and listen to what you're saying, because it's so exciting, I think.
It is
so
really exciting.
I think, and to ask these questions, and for people to, a lot of my work's been about giving people freedom of choice. So getting information out there, whether it's about birth or any subject, especially currently, having a wealth of information so that we can make informed choices. And I think there's certain conversations that are a bit are avoided, that we just don't have that access to much information. So this is one of them. Not many people like to talk about what happens after we die. We don't like to talk about death.
It's interesting, Kim, that people say don't talk about death and religion. I spend my life talking about death and religion, so you're quite right.
Some of us were born to ask the questions that no one else is, to walk against the wind. I like this conversation.
Me too. Yeah.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about you and your background. Particularly fascinating that you had 30 years in the police.
I had 25 years and 8 years with the London Fire Brigade. It was 8 years with the London Fire Brigade.
Right.
And then I had 25 years with the police. Do you want to go right the way back to my birth?
Well, I don't know.
There's a
What's
reason.
relevant?
There's a reason. Something
Well,
relevant.
I trust you. So
Yeah.
over to you, really. I want to say, if you want to introduce yourself, your background, how,
Yeah.
how.
What I'll do is I'll just give you a quick bit of my birth, but you'll see the reason I'm going to my birth,
Okay,
and then it'll make more sense.
lovely.
I was born a cesarean, and they christened me for burial. Yes, they christened me. My mother and parents didn't name me. They named me there and then because they thought I was going to die. There was a ship called the Rodney, and that is involved in the sinking of the Bismarck. And so they said, "Oh, he's sinking rapidly. We're christening him quickly." Hence, that's how I got the name. So it's very interesting linking up with near-death experiences.
Yeah.
So to this day, I think there's a little bit happened to me which occasionally flashes back. So hence, that's all you need to know. Yes, yeah. So I wasn't supposed to live. I was christened for burial, and I'm here studying near-death experiences. And so that's why I said it was worth going back.
Yeah.
See the point now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'll go back to where 18, I joined the London Fire Brigade, and had a happiest period of my life, to be honest with you. It was the 60th, and it was great. And I had some near misses in there more than once. I had an incident where I was coming down a roof, literally a big roof that was like that. And it's about 200-foot drop, and I'm sliding down it. I am literally sliding down it, and I think this is it. I'm going to die. Remember, I'm 18, and I wasn't a Christian. And at the last minute, two hands came up the gutter, and my feet went in these hands, and it was another fireman. Now, the chances of him coming up that ladder and getting there at the top, you think about it. Well, I didn't think about it because I didn't believe, see? But bam, and he said, "Oh my goodness, Rog." And I looked over, and there was a man standing with a little boy holding his hand near the post office, looking up at me. And I came down, he came over to me and said, "I want to shake your hand." I saw what happened there. And he was standing right by the bookshop where I bought a book, which is going to come later, a little way down here. So I remember I thought, this is it. I was going to die. And it was a bizarre feeling. And I had the urge for a cigarette. I've always been a non-smoker. I know. I can't, to this day, can't explain it. I wanted a cigarette, and I don't like cigarette. I find it, even thinking about it. I don't explain that. And then another period when I was in the London Fire Brigade, we did a big display for various people coming from abroad. And I did a display with Hillingdon Fire, the fire station, and I was walking across, and this divisional officer said to me, "Here, come here, fireman," because I was only 18 then. Yep. I said, "Yes." He said, "I want you to go up there, and I want you to be lowered out of that building. I want you to link up, and on the day you'll be doing that." And I said, "Yeah, okay." Loving it, loving every minute of it. And they lowered me out, and they pushed me out, and they came down on this thing with it's a big turntable ladder. They're lowering me out. And I was very, very happy about it. And on the day, tell a lie, a couple of days before I was going in for the display, I went down with laryngitis. I'm 18, and I know I can carry on. And the station officer said, "You can't." He said, "Everyone in the station is going to go down with it." And he said, "We cover London Airport and hospitals, and we're going to have no firemen. Get home." He says, "Get home, I don't want to go home, get home." And on the day when I should have done it, someone else took my place and they died.
Oh.
They were pushed out, and there was a link.
Wow.
And he died. Yeah. And I believe that I went down with laryngitis because I'd have been dead. That would have been me being pushed out there. And I've never forgotten that. And since I've become a Christian, there was going off the roof. I didn't die. I was saved. Going to that display where I was going to be the person being pushed out. Someone died doing the job I was going to do. I was taken away from that. So it's a coincidence. But there's a lot of coincidences. So you see where I'm coming from here?
Yeah,
it was really incredible. So that's twice, coming off the roof, hands coming up out nowhere. I thought it was terrible having laryngitis, but it saved my life. So good came out of bad. So then obviously then I joined the police force, and I've done loads of stuff in the police. I was involved in the horse. Remember the horse guards all got blown up in Hyde Park? And they blew all the IRA. Well, I was first on scene there, and that was horrible, terrible, terrible. And then there was, on the same day, they blew the Green Jackets up in Regent's Park. And so we immediately had to go to that afterwards. And then I was involved in when they tried to mortar number 10, the back of number 10, when the IRA tried to mortar that. So over my career, I was involved in loads and loads of various incidents where, you know, big stuff. Yeah, big stuff. Yeah. And small stuff, and then I went on, obviously, for all my career in the police, and I retired and took early retirement, and I thought I'd come down to the New Forest. And when I first came to the New Forest, oh no, I've got to go back, I digress. Back to when I became a Christian. So that, where the man was, he was standing with a little boy. I said there was a bookshop, didn't I?
Oh, right.
Yeah. One day I went into that bookshop because I've always been a bookworm. I love books. Read. I didn't even know it was a Christian bookshop. It's a bookshop, so I'll go into it. I used to go in second-hand bookshops. And I went in there, and I got this book. Oh, this is good. Reading through it. It's called Exit the Devil by Reverend Trevor Deering. Never heard of him in my life. Oh, yeah, I'll buy this. So I bought it. This was a Friday night. Have you heard this story? Have I told you this?
No.
On a Friday night. So never heard of Reverend Trevor Deering, wasn't a Christian, didn't even know it was a Christian bookshop. And I got home, and it was one of them books that I couldn't put down. I'm reading. My mother was saying to me, what do you want for your tea? And I was going, yeah, that'll do. She said, you're not listening to me, you know, one of them books. And I read it all the way through, and I read it very late, at 2 o'clock in the morning on the Saturday night. So I read it Friday night all the way through the next day. And I'm, you know, really getting through this book. And about 2 o'clock on the Saturday morning, I was off. I was on a rest day on the Sunday, so I could, you know, read to 2 or 3 in the morning, didn't have to get up early. And I put it down to the left side of my bed, and my father lent me his radio. So went to sleep, got up in the morning, just laid there on Sunday morning, thinking, oh, I'm glad I haven't got to go on early. And I picked up the book, and actually, oh, this is really good, lying and read the book. And this voice came. It wasn't audible, but it wasn't me. It was I can't explain it. And it said, turn on your radio. It seemed normal. I just done it. I turned my radio on. Then it said, change the channel. I changed the channel. The next thing it said, at 11 o'clock, Trevor Deering will be here to answer your questions. I'd never heard of him until the Friday when I bought his book. And at that point, all came, yeah. And I went, what's this happened here? What's happened? How can this happen? You know, we'll be here to answer your questions, very personalized. I remember running downstairs to my parents who were in the kitchen. My dad was an ex-regimental sergeant major, you know, very, no mucking around. And he thought I'd gone mad. Here I am trying to explain something which my mum's standing there. My mum was great, and my dad was really, and she said, no, let him speak. And so I'm trying to say, look, I'd never heard of this man. I was told to turn on the radio, then I was told to change the channel. Think about it, changing channels, that was really getting in. And then it said at 11 o'clock he'd be here to answer me questions. I didn't know about him until 48 hours ago. I listened to the program, and then I wrote off to him. And a member of the team wrote back and said, you know, invited me down to Hainault in Essex. I got down to Hainault in Essex, and the night beforehand was a massive storm. And a beautiful couple, and they invited me in. They gave me a chicken dinner. I'm a vegetarian now, but it was still a nice chicken dinner that night. And I became a Christian that night there. I actually became a Christian after I'd finished that meal. And then for 6 months after that, it was supernatural things just kept on. It was incredible. It was like I was in a different dimension for 6 months. Then after that, things went back to normal.
Yeah.
And that's how I became a Christian.
I never heard that story. We kept missing that story out when we were chatting.
Yes. But that's how I became a Christian. So from
Okay.
from
So
an
this is
atheist to Christian.
so is this is
Brilliant.
this is towards the end of your police time?
No. It was just the beginning.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, just the beginning of my police. Yeah.
Through. So then, the police. So being in the police, how that's relevant for the what we're talking about with the near-death experience.
Yes, exactly.
What's really interesting, I think, talking to you is how all those things fit together. So how your experience in the police helps you assess evidence when you're explaining all of that to me. So explain that was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, in the police, obviously, if there's an incident happens, you've got to have a witness. You've got to have evidence. You know, if you haven't got a witness and I haven't got evidence, I can't walk up to someone and say, I'm arresting you. And they said, you know, you've got no evidence. So I knew that if you have evidence and you've got witnesses, you've got a strong case. If you've got the more witnesses, the better. So if I've got 10 witnesses, great, better than 2 witnesses. So when I started researching near-death experiences, I realized that all around the world, there were thousands, more likely millions now, of people coming back saying 99% the same thing. And I'm thinking, if people are coming back saying the same thing all around the world, atheists as well, remember, as well as people of various religions, you've got to take these guys seriously. I thought, if these people who are dying, they should be a really good witness, because ultimately they've got no reason to lie. You've just been resuscitated. Normally you don't think, oh, I'll tell a lie now. So ultimately, you're going to say, this is what I saw.
Rather than, you unexpectedly, that's the thing, unexpectedly, like, you know, drop dead and then instantly decide this, I'm going to wake up and tell a massive lie.
Yeah, and then it's got to be a worldwide conspiracy, because they've all got to wake up and tell a massive lie, you see. So ultimately, logic says that, no, this is not adding up. And then on top of that, I started realizing that when the brain flatlines, you can't dream. The brain can't dream when it flatlines.
So I just want to go back a second. How did you get involved in near-death experience? Like, how did you become interested in near-death experience?
Good question. Good question. Yeah, it was perfect actually, because when I got just after the incident with the other book, I bought Raymond Moody's book called Life After Life. I think it was one of the first books out. And I read it, and it was now dovetailing very well what I was reading in the Bible. Right. I thought, this is even better, because my mind with the evidence, I thought, wow, this is good. I'm reading my Bible, and St. Paul says to be absent from the body is to be with Christ. Well, yeah, in Scripture. And I'm reading what some of the people are saying. I left my body, and then I saw Christ, be absent from the body. I thought, this is great. This is all making sense. Now I've got science and modern day witnesses saying what St. Paul was saying. So then I get more and more. And then I began to bump into people who have had these experiences, who started talking to me about it, who didn't even know that I was interested in it. This is interesting. Yeah. And so then I began to research it more and more, because we didn't have the internet at that point. There was no internet. And so I just started getting books, which looks pretty limited now.
Remember that.
Yeah, so I started reading books and reading more books. And so all of a sudden I thought, I've got modern day evidence for what the Bible taught me thousands of years ago. And I've got people who have seen Jesus today and coming back and saying, oh, I haven't actually spoke to Jesus. And so that was the beginning of it.
Right, okay. And then, quite similar for me. I think I started being fascinated with Akiane and her artwork.
Yes. Yeah.
And that led me, particularly with children and children having experiences, because they were so unindoctrinated by religion or belief.
That's right.
And particularly her, she was just brought up in the middle of nowhere with no faith.
She had no religious. In fact, I think her parents were atheists.
Yeah.
When she started doing that,
came back and taught them.
I mean, God, the way He responds to people, you know, you're an atheist. Okay, I'll work through your daughter.
Yeah. So the same, and just reading and being more
and I started researching it really deep. Then I started going. I was very lucky, because Dr. Sampania. Have you heard of him?
No.
Well, Dr. Sampania, he's leading the biggest research in the world on it. It's called the AWARE project. And he used to be stationed. He used to work at Southampton Hospital. And I'd seen him on television quite a bit. So he's now in New York, working in New York. But I thought, after a little while, I thought I'm going to communicate with him. So Caroline and I communicated with Dr. Sampania just before he started the worldwide AWARE study. And we went over to Southampton, met him actually in a cafe. We met him in a cafe, and we kept talking. He had a friend who was with him from the team. We were talking about near death, and I was telling him how I used it. And his friend was interested. It was on the team, and then the person in the cafe said, "Oh, we got to close now." So instead of going home, we went and found another cafe, and we carried on there. And that was just before he started the AWARE project, which has gone wide. I think 25 hospitals were all around the world.
What's the AWARE project?
The AWARE project is trying to find out awareness of consciousness in a person who's died.
Right.
Now,
okay.
He studied this with cardiac arrest because it's the best way to study it. Because when a person is has cardiac arrest, you get and it all goes, and you see the brain flatline. So he could actually know that there's no brain activity. So ultimately, he's done it in all these hospitals, and he's got all the evidence, and he's now doing AWARE 2, which is a continuity. And then I started seeing about reading about various other cases like Pam Reynolds. Have you heard of her?
No.
Pam Reynolds. Oh yeah, she had I think she had a aneurysm, massive aneurysm, the base of her spine. No doctor would touch it. And one surgeon in Arizona who would take it on. He was an expert, and she went in to have it done. And obviously they had to. It's called Operation. I think it was shut down or closed down. They had to literally close her down. She had to die. I think it was 6 hours, and no brain activity. They had to drain certain amounts of blood. They put patches over her eyes, things in her ears to monitor. And she left her body, and she actually said exactly what was going on, word by word. And when they got the tools out, which she didn't see because they wouldn't get them out till they started operating, what they used on her head was like a toothbrush, an electric toothbrush. Well, she thought it'd be a saw. And she thought, it's like a toothbrush. And it had a little dent in it. And then they were playing classical music, which she told them what they were playing. And then they couldn't get to the artery in her groin. And they were having problems. And one of the women said, we can't get to it. And I think he said, try the other side. When she came back, she told him exactly what was going on. The music was being played and what the tools looked like. She had eyes closed, covered, ears were, and she was brain dead. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, there's lots of amazing stories, and just looking at your book here.
Yeah, sorry.
Actually, and you just reminded me, this might be from the AWARE project, but it says here now somewhere between 2% and 20% of cardiac arrest patients survive now.
Yeah.
And of these, somewhere between 10% and 20% report a near-death experience.
That's correct.
And that's nearly all of them.
But there's something changed since then, which is even more exciting. Dr. Parnia thinks that they more likely all have one, but only a few remember them. So actually, the few that are remembering are the exception to the rule, not the other way around. Amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, so we talked a little bit about you and your story and how you've got into researching the afterlife. Your work, I've got here your book that you and Caroline have created, which is an amazing little resource.
Yeah.
So it's kind of basically a book version of what we're going to talk through.
Yeah.
So it talks about your work.
Yeah.
Bereavementrescue.com.
Yes.
So do you want to just explain briefly what your sort of ministry is there?
Yeah, I'll tell you how it started as well. Do you want to know how it started?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd been researching NDEs for years and years. When my mother developed stomach cancer, in 2000. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is horrible, because I've been very close to my mother due to the way I was born, nearly dying, and it was a bond. And it was the worst year of my life. What you actually go into bereavement before they pass away, when you know they're going to pass away. But what kept me going, remember, I wasn't a priest then. What kept me going was the knowledge that I'd got. I knew that I was going to see her again. I knew it wasn't the end. And I knew what was going on the other side of the veil. So it hurt me, like anything. It hurt, and it was terrible. But it was based on hope. I didn't have to have blind faith. I had faith based on evidence. Entirely different. Blind faith is weak. It's got no foundation. But if you've actually got friends who have died and spoke to them, and you know them, and they tell you, it's like if you had gone to Australia and you had told me what it was like, I'd trust you. And she's been to Australia, she's told me about it. But if you hadn't been and you're saying, I think there's a place called Australia, that'd be blind faith. So I knew there's lots of people. In fact, a lot of my friends have died, literally, but they come back. So I was talking to people who knew what was going on. And so when she passed away, as much as it was painful, I was shocked at my recovery. I was actually shocked how I recovered, because I didn't expect I'd recover like I recovered. And I thought, why have I recovered like this? And then I realized I recovered because I knew it wasn't the end. I knew it's like someone going, as I mentioned in the book, I think, going off to Australia, and you say goodbye to them. It's sad, but you know that one day you're going to get on that plane and they're going to be there to meet you on the runway. So that took away there was none of this sort of, no hope. In fact, it was full of hope. And it was that hope that made me want to go into the church and become a priest, so I could pass that hope on. So I thought, well, if I've got it, I want to pass it on. Because yes, death is painful. It's horrible. It's a pain you can't take a tablet for. But at the end of that pain, you say, I am going to meet that person again, and we're both going to be in this beautiful place, and all the pain, all the tears are gone. But if atheists can't say that. There is no hope. And if a baby dies, it's even worse. But if you know that there is continuity of life, and there's a reason, everything else, you go, yeah, it's painful, I can hang on, but I'm going to get on that plane and meet up with you later. And that's basically why I went into bereavement rescue and decided I want to start getting this message out. The more people know it, the less they will have to suffer when they get bereaved, and everybody gets it.
So you offer like a service to anyone that contacts you, really, to support
all free. Everything's free. Everything's free
with with
everything.
the grief process, emotionally, and then spiritually, by offering like presenting this evidence.
Yes. And the book, you can get the book free download if they want it. Everything's free. We ask no money for every service is free.
Okay, when I came across your website, well, Michael sort of dug it out from his memory. No, I've always been fascinated by this stuff. I've read all the books. I was just like, this is like, there's someone else and they're only up the road.
Yeah, it's great. You're part of the team now. You're part of the team now.
Yeah. Brilliant. So yeah, we got the book here. So let's talk about the big question. What happens? What does happen then? What does happen when we die? What's the science? What's the science? What are the witnesses saying? And then I never really had to be, I never had all the sort of like, but is it like all the questions? I think you title it in here. All the sort of like, is it the anesthetic? What are the key questions, or key? What's the word? I can't think of the word, but
the skeptical.
That people sort of I just believed because it's just
I mean, people say, is it the drugs? Well, people have them when they're in road accidents, and they're not even in a hospital to have a drug.
So what happens when we die? What are most of these experiences saying?
Well, basically they're saying it's a very peaceful and even in a road accident. I mean, you've got, for argument's sake, Mary Neal. Mary Neal, she was in a kayak accident. She's a doctor, she, in fact, and she looked and saw herself, and she knew, because she was an orthopedic surgeon, her legs were going back, and she knew, oh dear, my legs are breaking, oh dear. And she was having no pain because she was away from the pain, and she saw her body literally thrashing, but she wasn't experiencing. Now that's worth knowing, because if someone sees somebody really in pain near the end, to know that what they may be doing, but the real person is sort of standing outside, like Mary Neal was, watching her body thrashing, it may give people sort of peace, saying, outside, that person looks they're in pain, but they're more likely not. They've left their body. A lot of people stand by their body and watch themselves take the last breath.
Yeah, there seems to be lots of different scale. Everyone has a, some
yes.
people just see a light. Some people just lift out there, but other people go a little bit further and see loved ones.
Oh yeah.
Other people have really deep, profound experiences, like Ian McCormack's one of them, Betty Eady.
Ian McCormack, Betty Eady, Howard Storm.
Howard Storm, they seem to be the sort of like the biggest ones that I've read about.
Yes.
Yeah,
they go deep into it. A lot of people will just leave their body, perhaps stand by their body, and they're being resuscitated, and boom, they go back into their body. Others look up in the corner, see a light, and they go in towards the light, they go, oh yeah, and then they're bang, back in their body, been resuscitated. So there's all varying degrees.
Yeah.
So it'll all end up the same in the end, but some don't get as far as others.
The one that's just in my head, I don't know, I can't, you all know who it is, I'm sure, but the one that a lady was in hospital and left her body and left the building.
Red shoe on a building. Yeah, Maria.
I saw a red shoe on a windowsill, like it's a high-rise hospital building, and there was a red child's shoe on a windowsill.
It was a trainer. It was a trainer. It was a trainer, a red trainer. Yeah, her name was Maria. Yeah, and they went up and checked, and they said, "Oh, there's a red shoe up there." How do you explain that? How does that explain?
So interesting.
And blind people. We've got blind people. You see, blind people born blind. If they're born blind, they don't dream. They can't dream. They only dream in smell, taste, sound, and touch. They can't dream in visual because they've got no point of reference. So blind people, when they're actually flatlining, are seeing for the first time. What? That's mad. How can you see for the first time when you've got no brain activity? And when you walk back and you've got brain activity, you go back to being blind. See my point?
Must be so hard.
Yes. But I mean, that's strong evidence.
But amazing, like, again, that's a testimony in itself, isn't it? That their experience was so profound that then they can come back into such a challenging physical body and still have the hope and still have the the positivity that they've gained from that experience.
Yeah, I mean, that is really, I mean, that's overwhelming evidence. A person who's never seen can come back and actually describe stuff and say what happened. And also you've got deaf people who are literally deaf, have never heard anything, can die, hear, and come back and go back to being completely deaf again. I mean, this, when you start building it up, you've got evidence, lots of evidence. It's building up.
I just wrote a quote on this from George Ritchie, one that jumped out at me from Imagine
Spooky.
Heaven.
That's spooky. I was thinking of George Ritchie and I didn't want to butt in on you. Yeah, go ahead.
I wrote it so he wrote, and I thought this sort of in return from tomorrow, I have no idea what the next life will be like. Whatever I saw was only from the doorway, so to speak, but it was enough to convince me totally of two things from that moment on. One, that our consciousness does not cease with physical death, it becomes, in fact, keener and more aware than ever. And two, that how we spend our time on earth and the kind of relationships we build is vastly, infinitely more important than we can know. And from what I've read, which is nothing on compared to you, that's the essence of what what they're all saying.
Yes, yes.
Really.
I mean, George
There's more.
Ritchie. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. George
And
Ritchie was in the army. I think he was 21 when that happened, and he wanted to. I think he wanted to go on to be an officer. And what he was shown changed his life completely, because he came back and he became a psychiatrist to help people with addiction due to that experience.
Oh, he's it when you mentioned. Yeah.
I mentioned, like I say, I mentioned, yeah.
But that's from the book Imagine Heaven.
Yes.
Just finished.
Yes. Yes.
That's a John Burke. He's a pastor, and he's put together in that book.
Yeah.
Lots and lots and lots of different stories.
Yes. Excellent book. It's an excellent book. Excellent.
A good one to start with. So the science. So how do you present the science to people?
Well, it's interesting in one way, because we've got to find a new paradigm, because the old science, where you could actually put it in a tube and look at it or repeat it, you can't do. I mean, you can't kill someone 10 times, but there is a way around it. When you count all the people worldwide and add that up, and it repeats itself and repeats itself, you haven't killed the same person 10 times, but there's thousands, if not more, have died and come back and said the same thing. So it is repeatable in a new paradigm, isn't it?
So just and measuring them all up against each other, I guess.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if somebody went, just say hypothetically, I'm using a sort of symbolic thing here, but if an alien visited this planet, and one went into India, and one went to Australia, and one went to Bournemouth, or Boscombe, and one went to China, and they all went back, they will all say variations, but they all had an experience on earth, because Jesus said, in my Father's house there are many dwelling places, and there's a lot more dwelling places in the afterlife than there is on this little planet. So if people come back and they basically, normally they say very similar, they went through a tunnel, they saw the light, time didn't exist, you spoke mind to mind, all that, they're saying the same thing. These witnesses are saying. And when I was in the police, another interesting point, if you went to an incident and there are about 10 people there, like when an explosion goes off, and you are taking a witness statement and somebody had shot somebody, the witness statements all vary.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
You know, there were 5 shots, there were 7 shots, there were 4 shots, but it didn't take away the truth. There were shots and someone got shot. So people have variations, and you often, a car accident, various witnesses, they all see the accident, but the variations. And in fact, if there weren't variations, I'd be very worried. I think they got together under collusion.
Yeah.
But if the variations show it's like the Bible, the variations are the strength, not the weakness.
Yeah.
Witness statements should be
human. Yeah, we're human and we interpret things differently.
Yes. We do. Yeah.
That leads me on to the next sort of question, really, which is discernment. I was thinking discernment and commonality. So that I got another quote actually from John Burke, which is around the sort of discernment question. And he says, after reading hundreds of NDE accounts, I started to see the difference between what they reported experiencing and the interpretation they might give to that experience. Yes. While interpretations vary, I found the shared core experience points to what scriptures say. In fact, the more I studied, the more I realized that the picture scripture paints of the exhilarating life to come is the common experience that NDEs describe.
100% agree. 100% agree.
So, yeah, I jotted it down sort of.
Because that's what I was saying to you in the early days when I had Moody's book. I was seeing the common thread, the variations. Yeah, people, when we have a conversation, we talk in variation, but the overall thing was, it was, you know, very much geared towards what I was reading in the Bible.
Yeah, and most people, I haven't actually, all of the ones I've read say that it's so difficult to come back into this world. Yes. With our limited understanding of time and language, to actually even describe their experience is like a challenge, because there's no words, there's no imagery, there's nothing that's quite, they just can't even put words to what the experience was. So that's the commonality in itself, the fact that they all say that.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got, sorry.
Yeah, but they can't.
Yeah.
So they can't even describe it. So to explain, to try and expect them to describe it exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying, I can't. It's too.
I mean, they've got colours there that don't exist. You've got colours that don't exist here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody once said you need an alphabet about 10 times or more longer than the alphabet we got to even begin to try and find the words, which was a good way of putting it. You've got people talk about breathing music. Yeah. They breathe it in. Howard Storm, in his book, I think Descended to Hell, says that Jesus came and spoke to him in musical tones, I think. Musical tones. I mean, they're really struggling to try and explain it. And remember, there is no time. So you're in the now. Mm. So when someone loses, now this is interesting for someone who's lost someone. When someone loses a loved one, to the loved one, there is no big gap, because the person is literally, it's like you pop into a shop and say, I'll be right out, and the other person walks in the shop behind you, because they're in time, the other ones are not in time. Mm. See what I'm saying there? Mm. There's not a big gap for them, because it's like they just walk in following. It's like if, you know, you go into the house and you say to your little one, I'll be right back, and she just runs in. But on the other side of it, you've got this time. We're in time. And so it's a long drag. But to them, it's like, you know, 1,000 years, you know, it's like one day to the Lord, literally. Mm. As it said in scripture.
I was just thinking then, I think what helps me relate, there's been moments in dreams that help me connect with what they're saying. So I've had moments in dreams of a smell that I'm just sure is a heavenly smell, or I could just pick out a few dreams and sceneries where I just know that it was something different to just your average dream. That's just
a gift. You've got a gift there, I think. You've got a gift.
Yeah. It's probably why I'm drawn to their descriptions, particularly of the flowers and the nature and the scenery. Just amazing.
You've got a gift there. You really need to develop that. And, I mean, God's using it, obviously, at the moment, literally.
But I'm talking to you because of a dream.
Yes, brilliant. Exactly. Exactly. If you hadn't followed through with that, it wouldn't have happened. Faith without works.
Yeah, I definitely want more of those smells and more of those sceneries every night would be lovely. So where were we? So yeah, talking about the evidence, looking at the evidence, transforming and lives transformed.
Yes,
that's the biggest.
I mean, that is a massive strength. I mean, you think about it. Let me think. I'm going to use Howard Storm because he was profoundly. You'll see the reason. He was an atheist. He wouldn't even allow people to talk about God in his class.
I think he wasn't a very nice man either, was he? He wasn't.
He admits it. Yeah, he admits that. Yeah,
nasty man.
Exactly. Now, all of a sudden, and obviously his language, he says, was quite choicy, and his way of life, he wasn't at all. He admits it. He wasn't at all. He said that he wasn't very likable, as you said. Now, all of a sudden, after he comes back and he says to his wife, it's all about love. It's all about love. It's all about love. And she says, yeah, I know. You know, have a rest, basically. And then he's literally, everybody he meets, he wants to hug them. Unless he's not the man who went away. This is
like, no, you're an horrible man.
You've got it. You go, you know, what I think he said him. I'm sure he did. I'm 99% sure that somebody come to see him because he took a long time to recover, and he went and put his arms around the guy. Went, oh, go away. What's up with you? You know, and then he decides he's going to become a preacher. So he gives up a very lucrative, financially well-paid job, and goes to a poorly paid job as a priest, as a minister, after being an atheist. What's going on here? Yeah. And preaches love. I mean, that in itself, that's evidence that definitely demands a verdict.
Yeah, yeah.
And then his wife couldn't cope. His wife couldn't cope because she'd got a different man come back.
Yeah, I think
No one could cope.
he came back too over enthusiastic, overbearing with it, that he ended up offending everyone around him. But
that is
found the balance.
That is strong evidence. That is strong evidence for an atheist who wouldn't allow religion to be mentioned in his class to come back to become a preacher, to give up money and lose his family over it. That is a powerful statement.
Yeah. Transformed lives, and I guess I'm looking and comparing a wide range, like exactly like you have.
Yeah.
You sort of learn, like you would discern anything, really, wouldn't you? If
you must discern.
You've
got to discern. Discernment is obviously God-given, isn't it?
Yeah. So just when you read, it's only from reading so many. One that stood out, actually, something at the beginning for me, was obviously Akiane. And she painted this picture. I got the book back again. She painted this picture of Jesus when she was 8.
The Prince of Peace, was that Prince of Peace, that one? Prince of Peace? Yeah.
So she's just, you can see that more there.
Yeah, beautiful.
She's 8 years old. She's painted that huge painting.
Yeah.
And then there's Colton Burpo.
Yeah, so he saw his little sister, who he didn't even know who died in miscarriage, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. Came back and told his mum that he'd met his sister, and she fell down on her knees because she'd never even told him about her miscarriage. So anyway, and then he later, his parents were showing him pictures. Is this what Jesus looked like? Is this what Jesus looked like? He's like, no, all these old paintings and crucifixes. No. And then he saw Akiane's painting and was just like, that's it. That's him. It's just amazing. I love that.
Talking about bereavement rescue, jumping back on that, because you got that book up. Last week I had a priest in the States who asked for prayer for a couple who'd lost a child, a miscarriage, and he said, "Have you got anything?" And I actually said, "Yeah, I've got something that could help them." And I actually pointed them to a little lad there who had seen his sister. So it's great. So they actually passed that on. So it's funny you had that up. Yeah,
it's powerful.
Yeah,
powerful. We probably need to think about wrapping it up, because we could talk all day long, but we're going to do a series.
We just continuity. That's what you want. That's what you want. And we've had no big spaces where no one could talk. We haven't had any.
We never do.
No, we never do. No, it works perfect.
We never do. So there's loads we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about like other things, what happened in near-death experiences. The big one, I think, is the life review, because really understanding the life review that so many experience.
That is so important. That is so important.
Changed everything for me. Changed every day. I like being aware of that changes my little choices every day, ongoing. So I think that's such a big one.
Do you know that should be taught in schools? If they taught that in schools, that would be fantastic.
And just that new understanding. So we're gonna, I think we could probably end up talking the whole time next time on the life.
That'd be good. If we do the life review next time, that'd be a good one.
Life reviews, people having conversations with God and Jesus. Asking the question, being able to ask the questions, because I always like, I wish I could just ask God that, or I wish I could just ask know the answer. And like, some people got that opportunity and did just straight out say, how does this work? And what's that about? And what does that mean?
Howard Storm asked, was the Bible true? And Jesus said, yeah. That's worth knowing.
So just explore this stuff and see what you think. I love how you described what you do. It's a bit like what you did in the police, is you present the evidence, you present your experience like you would in the police to the jury. So this is what this is really, presenting what we've read, what your experiences, all the different stories and people you've come across, so that people then can dive into it if they want to, if they're
and on top of that, once they've got the evidence, they've got to say, well, what's the alternative to that evidence?
Mm.
And that's worth asking the question themselves. What is the alternative? If this isn't right, how do you account for it? Because they've got to account for it, the evidence.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, for argument's sake, when I say blind people see,
Yeah.
if people rejected it, they've got to be able to account. How can they come back and say they saw what they didn't see if they were blind?
Oh no, you lost me there.
Right. If someone's blind
Yeah.
and they have a near-death experience,
Yeah.
and they come back and they can actually, they've seen for the first time,
Yeah.
and they come back and they can relay it. If someone says, oh, that couldn't have happened, well, how can they account for what the person saw? Or if a deaf person, like for argument's sake, then
So
in the case,
yeah.
in the case of Pam Reynolds, then when she was flatlined for 6 hours, how could she tell about it looked like a toothbrush and it had a dent in it?
So you're saying, so how else do you explain it?
Yeah, you did it.
So,
How else could they explain it? So
how
any
else?
evidence, that's it, you've got it. Any evidence they reject, I say, fair enough, you explain to me.
Give me an alternative.
You give me the alternative.
Scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
love
give me the
that.
alternative.
That's what this is.
That makes people think.
We're doing, yeah.
That's what it's all about, making people, if they go, oh, I can't think of an alternative.
Yeah.
So the logic says, well, if you can't think of an alternative, normally that means that what you see could be true.
Yeah.
And then you start adding it up, don't you?
Yeah.
Adding it all up. And so, right.
And have that quick, like, have that debate, have that.
Yes, have it, yeah.
That.
Yeah, because ultimately, when you start seeing all the stuff dovetailing, you're literally going to go into the point, which is into the next, obviously up and up and up. Who created it all? I mean, we get to that point in the end, won't we? Oh, and then
what really struck me when I started reading all of these, diving into this about 10 years ago, was there wasn't like many they all led to the same answer. There wasn't this version or that version. There wasn't. There's not many different experiences. They're
exactly.
all the same.
Exactly. And an interesting.
Like, oh, I'll pick that one that's true or that one that's true. It's like, no, they're all quite.
No. They're all exactly. I mean, like Ian McCormick, as you say, and but all of them, they all just go like they all dovetail. You go, yeah. It's like the person who saw the accident. You go to 10 people, take another statement from you. They vary, but they all saw the accident.
Yeah. Right. So we're gonna next time we chat, we're gonna talk about
life review.
Deep into the life review.
I'm looking forward to that.
And those. So,
that is brilliant. That is a fantastic subject. The life review.
Forward.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Anyway, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks for the conversation.
Been good for a first, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll forget we're even on here. We could just talk for hours. And I'll link up below anyway, the link to your book.
Yeah.
It's just a really nice introduction. And it goes into all the science, and it sort of goes into all the sort of questions like, is it due to anesthetic? Is it dream? What about the dying brain theory? So you've sort of gone into
I mean, given and it's all cross-referenced with all the science, so that we've given links, they can check it all out with the science.
Yeah, it's a really
it's all referenced,
intro into it all, and then some resources, all the lot of the books.
You got it. Yeah.
We've been talking about. Okay, we'll leave it and then catch up.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was brilliant. Thank you so much, Clem.
Lovely, always lovely talking to you, Rod.
And to you, and keep up the good work.
Likewise.
God bless you.
And you.
God bless.